Welcome everyone to the Life Shift Summit, from crisis to crushing it, for anyone in midlife, quarter life, and now, of course, COVID life crisis. The world is going through a lot right now. We're all in it together. So this is a perfect time to have this conversation. I have a special person with me today. Her name is Bela, and she is an author, speaker, success mindset, and manifestation coach for business. She's a spiritual mentor, transformational teacher, and energy therapist. Robin is from India and came to the UK in 2003. She has been offering her services for the last 15 years. She is the author of the book, Break the Pattern, Connecting to the Power Within to Create the Life You Want. And she co-authored her upcoming book, The Successful Mind, Tools to Living a Purposeful and Productive Life. Robin is an MBA graduate and was in corporate field of marketing and advertising for about 5 years before starting her own practice. Her journey into this field began as an energy healer when she healed her own knee injury in 2005. From there, she knew her path was to help people and heal and transform their lives. And soon Robin was helping others improve the way they thought and felt about themselves and help them manifest their desires. And this is not just in personal lives, but Robin shows entrepreneurs how to manifest their success in business as well. Today, Robin has helped thousands and personally and professionally come out of very difficult situations where they seemed stuck and felt they had no solution. So please welcome Robin. Glad to have you here.
Thank you for inviting me here, Mark. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, awesome to have you here. I'm very excited because I think you're, to my estimation, a great balance between the yin and yang. I mean, you have an MBA, but you also are a spiritual person. So, you know, you can do spirituality and you can do like the grounded work in the real world, right? So, and I think that's the idea, is to pull from source, you know, get your guidance there, get your motivation and inspiration, and then channel that into some, you know, powerful tools and work to manifest change on the planet or transformation. So would you agree?
Yes, yes, absolutely. I think we need a balance of both to be successful. In fact, the reason why I feel I even use spiritual practices for my own business success is because you just cannot just depend on just the mind working on strategies. And that's why mindset is so important. That's why connecting to our own inner alignment and purpose and all these things is so important. And having a balance of the two, it really makes a difference, because the outer world, even if you're doing some marketing, will feel the energy behind the words you're saying, the authenticity, the element of service, all of that. So yes, it is very important, I think, to have a blend of both to create any success.
Yeah, I completely agree. And so you talked about mindset. Can you say a little bit more about that? And is that what your book is about, your first book, Breaking the Pattern?
The Break the Pattern is actually an e-course initially, and then it was converted into a book. And it is a 30-day program to create a change in your personal life. So it does work a lot on mindset, and it has elements of different areas of life where you are doing deeper reflection. So it makes you create changes. So there's a lot of work that you do along with me, and I guide you through the whole process. And it starts changing and change to a new pattern. Like, what do you want to create your new patterns, new way of thinking? So it has a lot of elements of journaling as well, lots of questions that really help you to ponder deeply. And I think that's where that was written in 2014. So there I've mentioned the element of connection to God and / universe, like in the way that I want everybody to be open to connecting. But the more and more over the years, I have really started deepening that understanding that it's so important to talk just straight about God. And the divine, in the element of bringing in the manifestation power. So now I share more strongly about that. So the book has more mindset, yes, and now I've brought in more spirituality, actually. And I'm trying to bring that more into the understanding of how it can be used in businesses as well. So
Yeah, that's great. I do similar work. And so in my work, I've sort of coined these, created these new words. One is the micro mind or micro mindset, and the other is the macro mind. And so it's just a way of making a distinction between the different ways of thinking or different places that you can get your solutions from, and where the problems usually stem from. And so, you know, it's based on my work in Course in Miracles, and the Course in Miracles talks about the ego mind, right? And that the ego mind does not necessarily have your, it tells you it has your best interest at heart, but it's really fear-based. And because it's coming out of fear, it's any solution it comes up with is really going to generate more of what you're afraid of ultimately. Whatever you, according to the Course, whatever you defend against, you create more of. The defense itself is coming out of the mind that created the problem. And so going to another place to get your solution, and the place, I call that place your macro mind with a capital M. You could call it God, you know, any other words people use for that, universe. I try to use the types of words so it appeals to everyone. But so I make, the reason I'm saying this is because I make this distinction between the two places, and I think it's very, very important and potent in your life if you have a way of going to the macro mind to get the solutions and allowing that to move your life. Would you say in the mindset work you're doing, is it something similar to that? Are you like accessing information from a different like aspect of mind?
Well, what you mentioned, that it's so important to get out of this element of fear. And that is what I help people to move out of. So I help people to move to love, move to peace, move to finding that energy of complete wholeness within themselves, the perfection. So we are born perfect. We are born whole, healed, and perfect already as babies. We were born happy babies. We were not miserable and feeling lack within us when we were born. So we need to tap into that. But what happens is people are always looking to attain a goal and then find the peace and they find the happiness. But that never happens. Even if they attain one goal, they have another thing to achieve. And so they're holding their breath for the peace and happiness still. So they're constantly in the place of doubt, fear, anxiety, and not in the element of being whole, healed, and perfect, which is from where only you can create success. So if you're feeling that perfection inside you, that you know, you say that I am what I am seeking, only then you can create that. So if you're feeling empty and lack, you're only going to create lack. So you have to connect to the wholeness, the perfection, and that's the only place where you can heal from the past and fears of the future. Otherwise, there's no way you can create any change. So I've done years of life coaching and therapy for 15 years. And I had a journey where everything, I used to be very good with elements of coaching and meditation and things. But when things were hard for me in my personal life and nothing was working. And this is when I had to connect to God, because I had to find my peace within me. And when I deeply connected to that element of peace with God, I found that the fears dropped and I was peaceful for no reason, because I actually prayed for peace. And I wasn't praying for a goal to be fixed, because I kind of surrendered, I kind of given up. It's been years now. I was feeling threatened about certain situations and things were not changing. And then in that element of deep peace prayer for that 1 week that I was focusedly doing, I found that as soon as I found the peace, I had forgotten my actual problems. And then soon I realized those problems actually started disappearing. People who were bothering me were just kind of just disappearing and disappeared. And I was attracting, my social media was growing like crazy, viral. Like I had 2,000 friend requests in 2 days. After that, 1 week, I had work growing up. People wanted to work with me, and I was creating miracles in my clients' lives where things were not working for years. The house wasn't getting sold, or they wanted a new job and they weren't getting a new job for a while, or the business was stuck. And so I started opening up that channel of flow of life for people, that where things were not manifesting for them. And so this is where I take people to, from the element of fear into that deep surrender where everything works for them because they are totally aligned to God and letting God do things for them. And that requires not controlling.
Right.
So,
Requires relinquishing, right, to
yeah,
source. Yeah, yeah, that can be very challenging, right? Because
yeah,
fear makes you want to cling to like your way or your answer, right?
yeah,
Yeah. What
absolutely. Yeah,
one of the things that stood out in what you said was that I am that which I seek, right? That is so powerful. Like to really get that I don't actually lack.
yeah,
Like I came from everything, therefore I am everything. And
yeah,
from that place, like everything comes out of that rather than the other way around. Like if you said, instead of like trying to get something to make me feel peace,
yeah.
you went straight for the peace, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. You
Yeah,
nailed it. Exactly what you want to feel, that's what you got to pray. When we pray for something to happen, then we'll get there.
right.
So and what's happening is that you're in the lack energy, so you're not going to get anything because you're just extending the energy what you are in.
Right,
And
right,
we can only create what's within us, and we are the co-creators with God. And if we are not sitting in the right energy, we only going to create that of element of anxiety more, or fear more. So if you with that energy go out and do a webinar, go out and put an ad, that energy reflects in there.
right.
And
Exactly.
if we are talking to people who want to manifest anything else, whether in their life, in the personal lives as well, but if there's a belief that you can't do that, then there's no, you first of all don't believe that God is with you, and you're doubting and you're not keeping the faith. So
Right,
and prayers are not answered when you are doubting or not in faith. So you have to have the belief that it's working, even if you don't see the results, and get into the element of peace in your energies. And once you get into that, then there's no worry and no tension. And you don't worry about when is going to happen. And when that energy is flowing within you, that's a sign God's with you because you're happy for no reason.
right. Yeah. And so I got a number of questions for you right now, but I don't want to forget them. I'm trying to write them down. So if you see me turning, that's what I'm doing. I'm writing
Sure,
down.
yeah.
Yeah. So one is, so I'm just going to list a couple of them. We'll get to them. One is, I'm curious about your life, and if you're in this space all the time, because I tend to waft in and out of it. Like I can still do fear pretty well. I know how to do fear. And,
Mhm.
I'll get an idea from what I call the macro mind, or like, I feel like I have guidance and I'll feel safe and comfortable and good and like, on purpose and inspired. And then in the minutia, in the middle of the details is where I'll start wanting to take control or wanting things to go a certain way. And then I start getting nervous. Right.
Mhm.
So I'm wondering what you do with that. Also, a question about, like, you see a lot of people, somebody just asked me this, one of my clients asked me this yesterday, and I just had to let intuition guide me the answer. But he was asking about, well, what about these people who are obviously, they're not very spiritual, they're not praying or meditating, and they're very intense and they're fear-based, but they tend to be in the world achieving a lot of success, like getting wealthy, having successful business, like, because you said you can't really be successful unless you actually had the peace first. Well, what about
Mhm.
those people? Because they're sort of an example of the opposite.
Mhm.
What would you say about that?
Great question. So the first one, sorry, I'm forgetting the first question you asked was, I'll answer that first. Or
About
should I?
your life, and do
My
you
life.
find that you're regularly
Yeah.
in that state of peace? Like I
Yes.
get caught up still in fear, right? Once in a
Yes.
while.
Yes. And of course, that connects to what your client was saying as well.
Yeah.
So, So first of all, fears is normal. Human beings experience that. But when we realize that when we're with God, fear is a stranger, that means that it is not true. It is an illusion. And when we are so walking with God and we bring in God's and energies every day in our prayer, then you have a choice. After you say a prayer, you go back to worrying and cancel, clear, delete your prayer, or you keep the faith and sit in peace. So that practice is hard for the beginners because it goes up and down, as you say, and maybe not at all up and down, just maybe still back to fear, square one. And there's so many times I may still sense fear, but I know that being in that space is not going to create anything for me. And also that once I've experienced that situation of my life where things were not changing for so many years, I've tried controlling, doing everything, nothing was working, and I surrendered and I've just prayed, God, I pray for your peace in me now and joy in me now. And I just said, God's peace is shining in me. I'm God's peace. And I kept saying that repeatedly as a mantra for hours. And it shifted so much of fear, so much of pain inside me within like half an hour itself. First half an hour I did. And then I kept doing it for a week because I was so enjoying it. I was just in the bliss. God's love is shining in me. God's peace is shining in me. I felt relief. And when I was in that space, everything around started shifting automatically. So now I don't wait till for so long time spending and all of that. I just know that it's the truth, and I just don't have to spend so long to recognize and realize that. So I just have a morning pattern where I just imbibe what I'm seeking. I am God's light. I'm God's peace. And I say that repeatedly. I'm God's safety. I'm God's success. I'm God's joy. God's strength. Whatever I need more, I just say that. And I ask God to speak through me and guide me what I need to be doing. So I'm living, I am wanting certain things, but I also want God's will to there because he knows better than me. And there are people who are not doing this, as you said, as your client was pointing out, and they're successful. So basically, they don't have the energy of lack about that in them because they were born seeing their parents successful, or they just had the mentality somehow that they were doing well the first time and so they just got confident it's working out. But the other areas of life, they might be struggling and they don't know how to get there. So they just never get there. And so we can be lucky that we already have the no lack concept in certain areas of life since we were the way our circumstances were around us when we were born. But some people can lose it as well if something happens, and then they just don't know how to get back because they lose the confidence. And because they thought it was not because of they don't have any support system, so they just think that's their bad luck or their now they've lost the confidence, all of that. So in fact, all they had was they just felt great inside themselves before, and they just had to go back to that and feeling complete.
Yeah, that's great. Good answer. Thank you.
I'm glad to hear.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So you have a regular practice then every day that you do, and how often do you do it throughout the day when you're doing, so would you call what you do meditating? I tend to call it centering, which is really just meditating or connecting with source.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing for years meditations similar to transcendental meditation, and I've done, name it, worked with guides and angels. I've taught programs on intuition. I've taught all kinds of stuff over the years, but nothing was working for me when I was struggling. So for me, connecting to God and his energies is what I need to do every day. Other stuff, yes, is great on the extra if I have more time, but this is the most important thing I do. It's like plugging into the my phone into a charger, and I'm getting charged, and that's what I'm charging myself with, God's energies, God's
Right.
perfection. So I'm remembering I am whole, healed, and perfect. I am God's peace. I am God's light. And as I say, my energies increase. I start healing mind, body as well. And over the time, as you do that, that energy is heightened, and it's quicker for you to get to that first. Obviously, the first time I did it took me a week to just feel that space and all that, right? Now I just spend maybe it's 5-10 minutes, and I'm feeling great high in frequency. And because whatever if I'm feeling fear or anything, is because I'm not sensing God's perfection in me. So I just tune back. So it's very quick. And I may do it more often during the day. I like to do before each my clients, to tune into what I need for them as well. And I really like to work with God's energy leading me and forward.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm nothing as a human mind. And what I can achieve is nothing compared to when he guides me and when I put him in the front. And we have a will for that. If we choose to ask, we receive. So we are like God's children. We have the same qualities of creating like God and will as God. So if we have the right to choose not to invite God in our lives or to invite. And then if you invite, you'll know the difference. If you don't see the difference, and that's why you don't believe. And those who invite out of fear, because there people pray for fear and then say that out of fear and then say that it's not working, it's because they're praying out of fear and not out of love, and
Right.
feeling that God's here for them, and it's all great.
All right. That's a very fine distinction. It's hard to know the difference, because I can still slip into that myself. But I think about the time. So it's interesting what you're saying to me. I'm trying to put it all together with, fitting it into how I do things and trying to understand. But I really think like meditation, those practices are all designed to get you where you immediately start. It's like you start right with, I am perfect, I am God's light, I am all that God is. I'm whole, healed, and complete, or something to that effect. Doing like certain forms of meditation are really ways to sort of help you bypass the ego chattering mind that's telling you the opposite of all that stuff, and sort of slip into this, the macro mind or the vortex, into that zone where you tend to realize what you're immediately starting with in your practice. I think that's really interesting. It's something I want to consider. I'm going to try today, actually.
You should, yeah.
I'm
And
trying
when
to
you,
immediately go there.
I'll add one more thing to that. When we start saying, inviting God to do things for us, he will make you feel the peace and the joy, and you don't have to do anything. A human mind likes techniques, and the life coaching part of me used to give those techniques. I can give you pages on things. But here, we ask God to do, and we just relax and surrender.
Yeah.
So I think the element of surrendering and letting God to give you the peace and the joy is the most important thing. And you're just dipping into that beautiful bliss and joy and enjoying that. And you're not actually trying to get somewhere. You're just actually loving God.
Yeah. I do this thing it's an acronym I call ASK. Always, like, when all else fails, just ask. Go to source and ask, right? I use that as an acronym: always seek knowledge, and God is knowledge, right? Always go beyond yourself and invite, right? So I had this thing occur, and I've told this story a number of times in my groups with my clients, but I've had a lot of crazy miracles in my life. Like, I was raised Catholic. I don't practice Catholicism anymore, but the Catholics, they have a whole thing of what is a miracle. Like, if the priests come in to decide whether this was actually a miracle, they have this list of things they go through, and these are bona fide miracles. The Catholic Church would say, yeah, that's a miracle. Like, so much happened that was outside the realm of actual possibility in the physical world, right? Like, things were just manipulated, time and space and physicality, to save I'm not going to curse with you, but to save my behind. And it's happened on so many occasions. And this has happened since I was like a young kid. I started asking, well, why me? Because other people in similar situations were not saved, right? Or what you could see in the physical world, you would not say. They either died in my situation or seriously harmed in some way. And I'm talking about like severe car accidents in the ocean, like all kinds of crazy things. and so I started to ask why me. Well, first of all, why people ask me, why do you get so many miracles? And I'm like, okay, because I'm a dumb guy and I do stupid
No.
things. I, I don't learn my lesson. So the angels are like, watch, here it goes again. Here he goes again. So, but what I came up with, because one of the incidents was a severe accident that happened in an area. I was a teenager, a car accident. I was driving and I almost killed myself and everybody in the car. The car literally hit a ramp at 60 miles an hour, flipped over in the air. People got thrown out of the car into a thick
Wow.
stand of woods, right?
Mhm.
Not one person was seriously injured. And in the
Wow.
middle of it,
Mhm.
I as I was losing control of the vehicle, I knew everyone was going to die. I immediately was like, oh God, please help me. I
Mhm.
can't save them. And I immediately heard a voice in my mind. It was a female voice. So in these situations, God is definitely a woman. And she said, relax. She said, relax, Mark, put your hands down. And I felt what felt
Wow.
like hands come around me and guide, steer this
Wow.
car in midair through past
Mhm.
every tree and protect
Mhm.
everybody. So the next night, similar thing happened to another crew of guys that were
Mhm.
sort of friends of ours, like acquaintances,
Mhm.
and everybody in that car died except the driver, and he was
Wow.
seriously injured
Mhm.
beyond repair. And it caused me to go, why me? Because
Mhm.
I know there's no God up there deciding somebody's worth it and somebody isn't, right?
Yeah. But
And
you
what I came
asked,
up with,
you prayed, you asked.
yes, to ask,
Mhm.
you asked, well, that's what I got. Eventually
Mhm.
what I heard was, well,
Mhm.
you
That's
asked.
it.
And
Yeah.
I can't assume I know what they did, but I do sort of assume they didn't know to ask. It wasn't like they
Yeah.
wouldn't ask, but they
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
didn't know to
Yeah.
ask,
Yeah.
right? But
Such
that
a good.
act of surrendering and asking,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that is the most beautiful way of explaining how important it is to ask. Everyday life, we need to ask more. So a lot of times people say, I'm struggling with this. Have you given it to God? Oh, yeah, I can do that.
Well, so you tend to remember in like traumatic situations like that. I immediately remember, like, I know there's something there that can help me, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
in the smaller, this is where I say in the minutia, in the small places, like you get involved in like this summit.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of tension for the summit, right? There's a lot of moving parts, a lot of
Yeah.
work,
It's
right?
a lot of
It's
work.
and
Mm.
it's something that I haven't done before. This is the first summit for me, so I get caught up in the details and I forget to ask, right? I forget, okay, well, I can ask for this. I can release it and turn it over and trust. There's no
Mm.
action, even in who shows up. Like when I first talked to you, I was
Yeah.
so excited to talk to you. And at first I wasn't, I was trying to find my way and I was
Yeah.
asking you all the questions I'm supposed
I
to
know.
ask you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're
You
like,
were being perfectionist, like doing everything right,
yeah,
obviously.
right, right. And you're like, Mark, you're like, I don't know how to answer these questions. You're like, I'm an intuitive person. I'm just going to go by intuition here. I'm like, and as soon as you said that, I went at ease. I was like, oh, good. She's like me because I'm like that
Yeah.
too. And then
Great.
I realized I can let this go. And that's why I'm excited to talk to you because this, I
Yeah.
think, is the greatest gift to give anybody in crisis. Like, this is how you get out of crisis. The number one thing is exactly what you're talking about. Like, relinquish your control
Yeah.
and get what's happening. And something is calling you to be bigger, be better,
Yeah.
to bring your purpose through in a powerful way. And whatever you were doing in the past wasn't big enough. It was fine, nothing wrong, but you're
Yeah.
graduating from that. We're all graduating right now,
Yeah.
I think. What do you think
Yeah.
about that?
Absolutely. I mean, I think more than ever before, we are all graduating, and as a
Yeah,
whole planet with all this COVID situation, um, people actually seeing what is really meaningful now,
right,
and more. And so things where this travel wasn't so much needed, we can connect this way, and why not, right? Life is, and then there's obviously more meaningful things about um, all the situations that are happening with,
with
the
with
black
the protests and the racism.
protests,
Yeah,
yeah, racism, and so many things are happening at the same time. It's like a contraction of energy of what's not meant to be has to fall. because the truth only shines in the end. And that's why those who are truthful, they don't have to fear, because God is with those who are honest and truthful. And so if you are believing in something and honestly want to, be that, then you will be supported. You will be given the pathway, and if not, then it will shake the planet, like the way the situation with Floyd is happening. So it's like old systems of how things, bureaucracy was working, corruption was happening, will not be able to exist. And it's happening in so many situations. I've recently seen somewhere in India as well. There's a very promising actor called Sushant Singh Rajput. He killed himself, like suicide, and it was a big hoo-ha there because it was there's a lot of nepotism, which is in this film industry, and kind of ruling there in India right now, and not letting others who are talented to come up. So that's exposing there. So everywhere where things are fake is falling. In fact, we're all doing what we want to do. In fact, jobs that were considered as safe is all falling. We're all doing our own thing more and more now. And so life is getting streamlined in a way to what is right, what is meant to be, rather than what should be, that's acceptable and all of that. It's more like what's true for you. What's your purpose?
I like that. And I think what's powerful about what you're saying, and again, what stands out for me, what you're saying is this concept was something I tend to focus on a lot. Like, in the Course of Miracles says you can learn love through pain and suffering. That's one way to do it. But why not learn it through love? Like, you don't have to go through the trauma, the suffering and all the pain and stuff. But if you resist learning the easy way, you're going to wind up learning it, but you're going to learn it basically the hard way, right? So,
I did the hard way. I did the hard way. Because for years I was like, I'm going to be this life coach. I'm a very good energy healer. I had a lot of stamina, and I kept pushing. I'm going to do it for years. I don't want to I thought I was spiritual. I was calling on God and all kinds of other elements, but there was no relationship where I was actually praying and letting God take over, and that element. I was still trying to control. I'm going to find my peace. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to affirm. But when we pray, God gives you the peace. God gives you the joy. And we're born with this peace and energies. And we still, as you said, we can choose to have it right away because we just say a prayer and we feel peaceful. But people don't understand it's so simple, and they just look at you like you're crazy. It must be something complicated. Let's go figure that out. Let's figure out what we have to achieve in our life and then find that, and postpone our happiness for now and postpone our peace for now.
One of the things I love about you, Robin, is that you speak so freely of the word God, and using the word God. It's actually freeing me up. I'm feeling inspired to.
I think we're in the same wavelength, and the more we say it, I think people will feel more comfortable. Like as I said, even in my first book, I was the same. I was feeling like I need to put God forward, / universe / source in every sentence, because in the end, we're making it harder for people to connect to the concept. We don't talk. You're beating around the bush, really. We need to connect to what's true.
Yeah, the reason I think it's challenging, one of the reasons I try to use multiple ways to discuss it, I even come up with words like macro mind, micro mind for a concept. But I think so many people have had experiences of the word God through their religion or whatever that isn't accurate either, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, in a Catholic, when I was a kid, I saw God like a white guy with a long white beard and a big throne with lots of gold around him. Like, that's not God. Like, I don't have that anymore. It's like not my thing. But, and it was such a limiting way to see it. And it had all these connotations that came with it. And it was also a threat to it. Like, God was going to punish me. And he was seeing everything I was doing. So it made me want to hide from God. It's like, oh, God. Right. So that's one of the reasons, but I like the way you're speaking into it so freely, and it's actually freeing me up a little bit. So thank you for that. We're like, it's 9:47. So we got started a little late, but I think we're pretty deep in. So I want to give you an opportunity to sort of tie it up, considering that our audience today are going to be many people who are in crisis because the world's in crisis.
Yeah.
So we're all in this, this collaboration of crisis, if you will, right? We're all in it to sort of together, but each of us have our own individual thing going on. So I talk about, midlife crisis and quarter life crisis now, because a lot of people, it's just midlife crisis, but people are going through it earlier and earlier, right? Because we're waking up, right? Yeah. And so if you could just speak into that, like close us up here with like some idea where people could start, like, maybe some detail around how to go in and speak to God for people who don't do it necessarily the way you do it. Just some detail so we get how to do it.
Absolutely. And I love that you even shared about the aspect of people being blocked because of religion to connect to God, because for years I was the same, and I still don't connect to a specific religion to God. All I do is connect to God, because God was there even before man made religion.
Right.
So God is present everywhere. So it's from where we came from. So if you've never done this work before, and if you are working with God through religion, please continue to do that and deepen it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how you look at this concept of God. If you don't have a concept with religion, just say God, just like the way I connected that way. But now when I read any text from different religions, I love what I read because it's resonating the same energy of love and peace everywhere.
Right.
So
let me stop you 1 second. So this is what I always say. I want to get agreement on it, but like inside every religion is God and truth, right? It's not the religion. I mean, the leaders and how people teach it may have a negative impact, right? But all religions are good, right?
Yes. And in the end, human beings have written these books at some point as well, published them and all of that. So we don't know what elements have come from the actual source as well. So something, if you don't resonate, just leave it. But elements of love and peace and joy is universal. And if you're reading words about that, that should be just giving you peace. And majority of the texts from all religions are of that energy. And they are giving the same thing, that God wants you to be happy. And that's what only he wants, and to be peaceful. And God gives you that if you pray. So you don't have to follow all of this religion stuff if you just want to focus on the concept of finding the relationship with God. In fact, I always say that once you connect and deepen that, then you go out there and read these things. It will make more sense, and you will know exactly what's where you are with it, with what you're reading as well. So I would say imbibe the qualities of God in your prayer, like I am what I seek. So you're saying I am God's light, and you say that repeatedly, and see how you feel. Say it for 5 minutes and see how you feel with that. It'll raise your frequency. It'll make you feel great. So you can say I'm God's peace, and see how you feel for a while, because that's going to start making you feel peaceful. I am God's love. I'm God's joy. I'm God's success. I'm God's abundance, all of that. And then if you want to pray, you want to tell your problems to God, but don't forget the most important prayer. That is, God, give me your peace today and give me your joy today. Because once you're in the element of joy and peace, you're already in the energy of having achieved what you're asking for, because that's where you're already keeping the faith. I'm there. I'm already the energy of what I'm asking. So people spend hours praying and complaining about what's not there and the begging. That energy is not going to create anything. Instead, 95% or 99% should be enjoying the energy of God with this intention of feeling his peace and thanking him and gratitude. And 1% or 2% saying what you really want him to help you with today, which takes a minute to say, okay, help me with this today, But people spend, it's the opposite. So we are sitting in worrying, anxiety energy. And after you say a prayer, you go back to worrying. So what's the point of saying a prayer? Might as well not bothered.
Right.
Might as well not have given your prayer. If you've given something in God's hands, it is a place of reverence. It's a place of sacred moment. It's a place where you are trusting in the God's power. And it is a disrespect to go back to worrying. It's like, do you not believe He's going to take care of you? And that's where you say that when I'm walking with God, there's no concept of fear. And if you feel the fear, God, give me peace in my heart right now. Give me your feeling of sense of that you're taking care. Give me your faith. And you ask for that energy if you're missing that. And you'll be surprised to go about your day as soon as you say the prayer. Don't focus on waiting if you're not feeling it. Sometimes we control that element. Just say it and go back to doing something and focus your energies on what you have to do next. And soon you'll realize in the middle of the day, wow, I'm actually feeling relaxed and peaceful and joyful. So let God give it to you. That's called manifestation. Manifestation is not the way we are trying to do things. Manifestation is very receptive. And majority of the things happen good for us because we are already relaxed and we're just receiving. And we're staying in the positive place, positive energy, and just doing our things what we want, having fun, and then seeing our synchronicities happening. And if you do that same energy with your business and everything, that's how you do differently from normal businesses then. So that's what I would say.
Well, beautiful, beautifully said. And I am definitely going to end it there because it doesn't get better than that. I'm totally in alignment with what you're doing. I think it's exactly, if we're all doing that, things will shift very rapidly. So
thank you.
Great. Yeah, it's great guidance that you're giving. So let's definitely stay in touch, and I don't know, maybe we get to work together more in some way in the future.
Absolutely. I'm sure since we're resonating with everything. Thank you for having me here again, and it's been a pleasure.
Yes, Rob and Bela, everyone, thank you so much.
Thank you.